I'll just start. Everybody, welcome to the Gold Derby 2020 Golden Globes pre-show. This is the place to be on the internet, basically on Earth, while we wait for the Hollywood Foreign Press's big night to commence in a couple of hours. I am here with, quite frankly, three of the most amazing, attractive, young, exciting people that I could possibly have been able to pull together for this first 40 minutes. My co-host, Riley Chow, welcome.
Hey, thanks.
And also joining us, Riley, you're in Vancouver, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Excellent. So fellow Commonwealth nation. Also joining us from Germany, I think, still, unless you've moved, is Luca Giliberti.
Nope, that's true.
Brilliant.
Hello.
Welcome. And of course, I mean, what's a pre-show without Marcus James Dixon live from LA?
Probably a much better one than this.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I'm, of course, Rob Licuria. I'm here in very smoky, hot Sydney, Australia. And we're here to talk about something very exciting, and that is Riley's new hairstyle. Riley, we're very excited about the blonde. I think it's going to be the talk of the day. Forget about the Golden Globes. We'll just talk about Riley's hair. But while we're all marveling at the beauty,
it's in the shape of the
well, you know, I thought that I was going to make a Golden Globe pun, but I'm glad you went there. I really am. Now, everyone, before we start talking about all the really cool, exciting stuff, don't forget to go back to our prediction center and make your last-minute predictions. Don't follow what Marcus James Dixon is doing necessarily, given what Chris D is saying, quite rudely, actually, but I totally agree with you. Go and make your predictions, your last-minute switcheroos, because you've only got an hour to go, okay? So get on with it, and then come back and join us for this exciting chat. Now, guys, I think that we need to probably start talking about best film drama first, okay? Because that's the big one. That's what people are really excited about, although the comedy category is nothing to sneeze at. Now, just as a quick reminder, the nominees are The Irishman, Joker, Marriage Story, 1917, and The Two Popes. Very, very cool lineup. But I'm seeing a lot of different kind of predictions here. It's not going to be a slam dunk for one film necessarily. I'm going with Joker. I only changed that 3 days ago. I had Irishman for a while. I'm going with Joker, and that's just something that's making me super nervous, but I'd like to hear from you guys. Riley, where are you headed at the moment on that category?
Well, I looked at all the predictions of the editors and experts, and I thought it was strange that I was the only one who is predicting Marriage Story, because Marriage Story is the nomination leader. It has 6 nominations, more than any other film. I feel like one of us should be predicting that. It reminds me of a couple of years ago when nobody was predicting 3 Billboards. I, of course, did. And it had 6 nominations, but it was just kind of discounted. I feel like the Globes, they do like these human dramas. And it's not nominated in director, which is a big deal. But I think we just happen to be in a year in which we have a lot of big name directors and very director driven films. So I can see how it would miss this year.
Yeah, that lack of a director nomination really kind of has made me hesitate very much about Marriage Story, and that's the main reason why I can't necessarily agree with your reasoning there, all as good as it is, Riley. Luca, what about you? What are you predicting in best drama film? And
I ended up going with Joker. I think for the longest time I had. I had The Irishman for the longest time, which would have, but I ended up going with Joker after director nomination for Todd Phillips, and performed well overall. Obvious sign that the HFPA was going to go for this movie, and I think it'll go for this movie in multiple categories. It'll make a bunch of people angry, or at least a bunch of people on the internet, but bear in mind that this movie is loved outside of the US even more than it is in the US. And we're talking about the Hollywood Foreign Press Association here, so I am picking Joker. I could see it going to The Irishman, but I just have this sense that Joker is going to be the Bohemian Rhapsody of last year.
Ooh, that's a big call. Marcus, you and I love this movie, right? I think we both
Oh,
have it as our #1 film of the year. Is that still the case? And are you still picking it?
It's my #2 film of the year behind 1917, which just blew me away. And so if I was a voter, I'd pick one of those. I do have Joker winning. And Riley, I don't know what kind of fumes you're smoking from your hair dye, but I have Marriage Story in 4th place because of that director snub. I think that's huge. And I realized there's probably, Joyce is probably going to rattle off the number of films that have won a Globe for a drama or comedy without a directing nomination, but still, that it's a big thing. And I do have The Irishman in 2nd. I could easily see that win, even though The Irishman himself was snubbed, and I can't get over that either. It's just so weird. It just feels like Joker got everything it should have, which was not a lot, but it did get that direct.
And more.
Yeah. Can someone explain to me why people are going to get so angry if Joker actually wins this and actor and perhaps maybe even score? Like, why is there all this Joker hate? I don't quite understand it.
Well, I know there are a lot of people who think the movie's very muddled and that it was trying to do too many things at once. I don't agree with that. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. I had a good time watching it. I think Joaquin Phoenix is incredible, but maybe it's just a film Twitter bubble. But there are a lot of people out there who will be very angry if this movie wins Best Drama or even Best Actor. There are a lot of people who don't want Joaquin Phoenix to win. But that little film Twitter bubble is the minority in the big picture, and I think this movie will do so well in Oscar nominations. I think it'll do well tonight. I think it'll do well all season long. I don't see all that hatred online translating here or anywhere.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is the box office for that film was completely unexpected. It's also become more of a pop cultural phenomenon. It reminds me of The Dark Knight being in a similar position and then not being nominated across the board in various awards groups. This film is kind of making up for that, in my opinion. And it's a film that I can rewatch over and over again, which is a huge test for me as to whether I think a film is something that should be awards worthy. That's just how I see it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the greatest work of art of all time, but I don't care about that stuff. And I don't think the Hollywood Foreign Press care about it either. And that's why I think Joker is definitely in pole position. And I think they vote for films like The Irishman and Marriage Story and maybe even 1917 because they kind of feel like they have to. They've got gravitas, and so they've got to make their ceremony look like as if they're picking the right films. To me, if anything's going to upset, it could be something like The Two Popes, even though it doesn't have those requisite nominations in director and screenplay and so forth. The Two Popes is a film that those old fuddy-duddies in the HFPA would love, and so that's kind of where I think this category is all over the shop. So, any other thoughts about this category before we move on?
Well, I think we should move on if we're considering The Two Popes.
I actually agree. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to the comedy musical category, because that's actually really strong this year. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes they have a bit of filler in there, and sometimes they really have a great set of 5 films. And this year, there was other films that could have been nominated that weren't because there was so much to choose from. Again, in my opinion. So the nominees are Dolomite Is My Name, Jojo Rabbit, Knives Out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Rocketman. They're all really good films, and to me it seems like this one's a bit more of a sure thing for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that seems to be the film that most people seem to be rallying behind, and this could be the beginning of its kind of journey to that Oscar glory in a month or two's time. So I'm seeing that Quentin Tarantino is probably going to have a good night tonight. That's where I'm sitting at the moment. What about you guys? Marcus, what do you think?
I mean, a lot of smart people, so not me, are predicting Once Upon a Time to win the Oscar for Best Picture. So going backwards from that, it probably has to win here first. I mean, I know Birdman didn't, but that's such a rarity. It has to win here if it wants to win the Oscar for Best Picture. So this is between Once Upon a Time and then 4 other movies. I mean, I don't even know what's in second. Maybe JoJo, maybe Knives Out, maybe Dolomite, maybe not Rocket Man, but yeah, I think it's kind of a lock. It's one of the many categories this year where you could say it's probably a lock going into tonight, and then watch what happens. We're gonna get them all.
Yeah, it always seems to happen. What about you, Riley? Do you agree that Once Upon a Time is the film to beat here?
I do, yeah. I thought this would be a more interesting race with Jojo Rabbit maybe picking up a writing or directing nomination, or even, supporting actress, supporting actor, something else. But it really underperformed in the nominations. I still have it second because it's a crowd-pleasing film that won Toronto, just like Green Book last year. But, Green Book had all those other nominations. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has surprised me over the season with how much people like it and how much passion there is for this film.
Luca?
Yeah, I agree. I have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood winning this pretty easily. It got everything it needed. It's been performing well all season long. It's been getting everything it's needed. And for me, it's one of the top 3 Best Picture contenders. And I think this has to be an easy win for the movie, especially because Jojo Rabbit, which a lot of us thought would overperform with the Globes or at least do incredibly well with them, really didn't perform at all and only got those 2 nominations. So I think this is an easy win. I would put Knives Out maybe in second place in lieu of Jojo Rabbit, just because Knives Out did get 3 nominations, which is, pretty good. And there is a chance that it wins one of those acting categories, especially actress. So I would put that in second place, but I don't think it's winning the top prize.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought, because I always think about what would be the film that might beat Hollywood, and I don't know why I'm going down this road, but I actually think Rocket Man is more of a threat than people are saying. And that's the kind of film that these voters would love. That's what I think. So 2 Popes, Rocket Man, that could be the end of the world as we know it for film Twitter. But stranger things have happened. And
they do love musicals.
They love musicals.
Thankfully, this one is actually in the category, as opposed to last year when you had musicals competing in drama, which is counterintuitive to the category. It actually has the title musical in it.
Yeah, and this is not like
it's the only musical in this category. So
that's right. And although if you're thinking about super funny films, maybe Dolomite is more, in that kind of vein. Maybe even also Jojo Rabbit. I found that very funny. I was really hoping to see Taika Waititi, the director, nominated tonight. That would have been really exciting. So that's why I think, because of Jojo's relative underperformance, even though it did get the actor in there, I've just completely Roman Griffith Davis nominated. Which is pretty cool because he's a very young actor. I still think that this category is absolutely nowhere near as much of a nail biter as the drama side. And so, that being said, we might move on because we don't have a lot of time. We could probably talk about actress in a comedy musical, as Luca mentioned earlier, because that is a category where people seem to be going towards Aquafina, but I don't know if it's as much of a slam dunk for her as well. And Ana de Armas is absolutely in the running here and would be such an exciting and interesting surprise for a relatively unknown actress to kind of make her mark for a very interesting and exciting performance in Knives Out. Do you all agree that this category is absolutely much closer than a lot of people are suggesting? Any of you just pipe up?
I feel like we get these contenders like Amy Schumer in Trainwreck going up against Jennifer Lawrence in Joy. And the Globes, they just like to go with whoever's closer to the Oscar nomination as opposed to who's more of an, it girl. So I think that Aquafina is still very much in the Oscar race, especially after she got that nomination from the Australian Academy from their international awards, which line up with the Oscars quite well. So I have her ahead, even though The Farewell did not get a ton of nominations.
Luca? There seems to be a delay.
Yeah, that's why I have Aquafina in number 1, because she is better positioned to get into Best Actress at Best Actors, which is why I do have her want Aquafina to win because she did in the farewell, and she's been doing incredible work for the last, but I just wouldn't be surprised to see Anna de Armas because they, like to anoint the breakout. I have a really, really good 2020. She's in a year, and if they want to be the ones to get to her first, they will do. Also look out for Beanie Feldstein because she's Jonah Hill's brother, and she was really great in Booksmart. We'll give her that breakthrough award. They will do it as well, but not get into comedy pictures. Didn't get in Caitlin Dever, so I don't have a lot of faith.
Thoughts, Marcus?
Beanie was the funniest of all of these. So if they're going based on funny factor, she wins. I do think it's the more awards factor, Oscar factor that's going to help Aquafina though. So I have her out front.
So just to close off our film talk before we move on to what I care about most, TV. The supporting category is always the most interesting to me, and just from the comments, Ought to Be Ben is asking whether we all agree as to whether Brad Pitt is a lock, and I think that I could probably say yes to that. And I generally don't like saying that something is a lock, especially this early on in the season. I think if you're talking about a lock for tonight, yes, he won a Golden Globe like a million years ago for 12 Monkeys, I think. And where he thanked Kaya Pekte because he obviously was feeling really nervous that day. And I remember that, and that was a long time ago, but that was one of my earliest awards memories. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him hopefully up on the stage. And even though it's probably 20 years since he's won that award, he looks really the same. Like this guy hasn't aged, just like Benjamin Button, which is really kind of infuriating. But yeah, I do think it's, sorry, I digress. I think he is a lock.
Rob, you don't look so bad.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice of you. Next time we have one of these, I'm going to dye my hair blonde, by the way. I'm thinking, though, can anybody take him down? Because I think Anthony Hopkins is not out of this.
If there was one Irishman guy here, I think it would be, a good battle. But I do think Pacino and Pesci cancel each other out. I mean, I watched that movie. I thought Pacino was the standout.
Really?
Zach Laws, our editor, watched it and he thought Pesci was the standout. So that is a classic vote split right there. I do think though that the Globes are such a small enough organization that they talk to each other, and if they really want one to win, they'll whisper to each other. And so I don't really think vote splitting is a thing at the Globes, but looking ahead to the Oscars, I do think it is. But it's Brad Pitt's. This is Brad Pitt's category. And look, he's going to win. Jennifer Aniston's going to win. It's going to be so awkward, and we're there for that. We cannot wait.
We're so there for that. We're living for that.
Yeah.
Luca, do you agree? Do you think this is Brad Pitt's to lose?
I 100% agree. I think it's the one category that I actually feel confident in my prediction. I agree with Marcus. They and Brad Pitt on that stage room, but they'll probably want them both on stage, and we'll talk about Jennifer Aniston's category later. But I don't know. A lot of people love his performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Great. I don't know if I'd give him the win. He just wants to give Brad Pitt that acting Oscar first award he gets on his route to the Oscars.
And
I think
Riley?
if there is an upset, it'll be Joe Pesci. I think that he could go on to the Oscar kind of like Mark Rylance did, where he's giving this quieter, more critically acclaimed performance. But it also just seems like Brad Pitt is sweeping through the season for some reason. He just picked up the award from the National Society of Film Critics for some reason. Yeah. And, the Globe was not going to be the hardest award for him to win in the first place.
Yeah.
He's also he's a lead character competing and supporting, and that helped Mahershala just a year ago for Green Book.
That's right. Yeah, they don't care about category fraud at all, and that is a very good point. On the actress side, frankly, I'm just going to put all my cards on the table. If Jennifer Lopez does not win this and everything else under the sun in this category, I will be annoyed because I think she is so good in Hustlers. Such a surprise to me because I just see her as being J-Lo, being the amazing performer that she is, and I forgot how wonderful she can be as an actor. I then revisited her performance in Out of Sight and remembered that she really does have the acting chops, and she deserves the recognition she's getting for Hustlers, in my opinion. This is not some bullshit award that they're throwing out to a big pop star. She actually deserves to be there, and I really want to see her win. Do you guys agree that she pretty much has this in the bag, or should she be looking out for someone like Margot Robbie, or most likely Laura Dern? What do you think, Riley?
I think Laura Dern has won so many times, and that they didn't nominate her for Big Little Lies this year is kind of a sign that they're not really looking to, keep awarding her this year. I think she's lacking that support. So I think I've actually got Margot Robbie in second, because she's that kind of actress who would win Best Supporting Actress. And I think Bombshell was really popular with the Screen Actors Guild and at the Australian Academy. So I would not be surprised if Margot Robbie won every award from now on. But yeah. I do have Jennifer Lopez.
Marcus?
Yeah, it's very easy for JLo to win this tonight. If she loses, I think her Oscar hopes are dead in the water. She has to win this, because it's this. The Golden Globes are made for someone like her. Like, they want her on the stage. She's gonna be, the top story on Entertainment Tonight tomorrow. Sorry, my cat wants to be included. But if JLo loses, I think it is Laura Dern that beats her. And I'm just looking ahead to the Oscars. Yeah. I think Laura Dern is much more of an Oscar type favorite than JLo is.
Yeah. And Luca, do you agree?
I actually still have Laura Dern in number one. I completely understand all the arguments for Jennifer Lopez, and I'd be very happy if she won. I loved her performance in Hustlers, but I just feel like they'll want to anoint Laura Dern as the Oscar frontrunner. They love Laura Dern. They've given her so many awards already. She just won 2 years ago for Big Little Lies. And yes, Riley, as you mentioned, her omission is a bit, strange and might point to a lack of support for her, but I actually think it's probably intentional, because they knew they were giving her this nomination for Marriage Story. So they probably, cleared a spot in the supporting actress category. And there are other contenders we'll probably talk about today still that didn't get 2 nominations, and where I still think they're pretty easy front runners in their categories. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Jennifer Lopez on stage. That's a moment they'll want to see. And one thing that really worries me is the lack of support for Hustlers. It could have gotten a comedy picture nomination. It could have gotten in for Constance Wu, who also really deserved this. And she didn't get in, and the movie didn't get in, which is a lack of support, whereas Marriage Story got 6 nominations. So I'm going with the safe pick, that is Laura Dern. But if Jennifer Lopez wins, I'm not going to be surprised or disappointed.
That's a really good point, actually. And we must remember that. And also remember that last year, I'm pretty sure I and others were saying Lady Gaga is going to win for sure, because that's exactly what they do, and they want to see her on the stage. And she won for American Horror Story, and she didn't win. Glenn Close did, and which was one of the greatest memes of all time when she her reaction. And I'm hoping we get more of that, by the way, because I love those surprises. But anyway, that's a good point. So Jennifer Lopez winning is absolutely not a shoo-in just because she's a big star. They're not as star whorish as they used to be.
Yeah, what concerns me about Jennifer Lopez is, do any of us have her predicted for the Oscar winning that one?
At the moment, yes.
No.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Because I find that so often I try to predict these awards thinking what is SAG like? What are the Globes like? What is Critics' Choice like? But then, so often the same performance just sweeps through everything, regardless of,
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're going to move across to TV now. We have 20 minutes to go until we have to sweep out a couple of these lovely people. And I want to go straight to drama series, because that's the big one for me, always is, although comedy is nothing to sneeze at. So in drama series, we've got Big Little Lies, The Crown, Killing Eve, The Morning Show, and Succession. And you could literally list another 10 series that could have been nominated, because drama on TV and streaming is so bloody good at the moment. But they're the nominees, and we have a mixed bag of who's predicting what. Some are predicting Succession, some are predicting The Morning Show, some are predicting The Crown. There's probably a couple of outliers of Big Little Lies and Killing Eve as well. I'm going with Succession. I think it's time for that show now to start sweeping everything under the sun as it should. But I need to know from Marcus, because I know that you just did a very last minute switch, which is a stupid thing to do. Don't do those last minute things unless you're really sure.
I know.
What
I
do you
took
got?
30 minutes to change it if I decide to change it. But I did have Succession forever. Before the noms even came out, I had Succession. But a few things just didn't sit right with me. Jeremy Strong didn't get in. And then it got snubbed at SAG, which is completely irrelevant because we're talking about the Globes, but still it just shows this lack of support that I thought was going to be there. So I took it out of my number one. I put in the morning show, and it just feels like a very Golden Globe thing, doesn't it? It's the hot new thing, not just show, but a whole new network they want to anoint and put on the map. And it's all this female empowerment. And look, if Reese did not get in, I wouldn't be picking it. But Reese Witherspoon got in, who I don't know if any of you guys predicted her. I certainly didn't predict her to get in. And yes, maybe Billy Crudup should have got in. Maybe Carl should have got in. That, but I'm sticking with the morning show for the next 30 minutes, and then I may switch back.
Marcus, did you read my article about why the morning show is winning, and did that sway you at all? Or did you make this decision independently?
It's funny because was your article about how it's a female showrunner and that would help because of the Me Too movement?
No.
No. Okay. I didn't read it.
That's a different article.
I had many other reasons.
Well, tell us your reasons.
Yeah, it's a new show, and the critics, they don't like the show, but it's not the critics who are voting on the Golden Globes. Normally, the critics and the Golden Globes do line up because they are all journalists. And they kind of think the same way, I guess. But last year, they really went in a different direction, where the Globes aligned a lot more with, I guess, comment people. People on IMDb who are rating stuff like Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody and The Morning Show 8 out of 10 or higher. So I don't think it's really a problem that the critics don't like this show, because the Globes definitely do. They nominated both Reese and Jennifer Aniston. It's the first show in 18 years to get those two nominations. The last one was The Sopranos, and The Sopranos, of course, swept through the Globes with 4 wins for its first season. Yeah, there's some things about Succession that concern me, and I think that the morning show is also extremely topical, much more than anybody expected it to be, because Apple didn't really advertise that. But it's about Me Too. It's about the California wildfires. It's about abortion. It's really timely, and I feel like the Globes can make a statement about our times. And then, of course, we know how the Globes love to be first to everything.
Yeah.
And they can be first to award Apple TV Plus.
Luca, do you agree?
Yeah, I did what Marcus did as well. I had Succession this morning still, and then I switched it out for the morning show. And Riley, I did read your article. I think there were a lot of good points in there, and it did, in the end, make me change to the morning show, because it is the shiny new object. It's the only first-year show nominated here. It's Apple TV Plus. If they can get behind the streaming service and be the first ones to do it, they love to do that time and again. And as you guys all said, it's very topical. It's the type of show that the Globes really love, and it features the type of performances the Globes really love. So I ended up putting it in number one, and I'm pretty surprised, because 3 months ago, I think most of us, or a lot of people at least, had The Crown at least in number one or number two, but it's all the way in number 3 now for me, just because I think Succession and The Morning Show are just much stronger and much buzzier at the moment, even though The Crown just aired not even 2 months ago, or was released 2 months ago. So I find that very interesting, how everything has shifted a bit.
The issue with The Crown, it is very good. It's on my top 10 list of the year, but the Globes rarely go back to something after taking a break from it. It won in season 1, and then it lost in season 2, and then it wasn't eligible in season 3, if I'm remembering correctly. So for them to go back, it just goes against everything they stand for. They love what's hot and new, unless you're the Americans, and then you're old and raggedy, and they still love you.
Yeah.
But it was new to them.
It was new to them, but doesn't The Crown kind of feel new because of the new cast?
Yeah,
Like
it does.
that is an argument. If it does, I've seen a few people say
Yeah.
The Crown's going to sweep, and I think our good friend Chris Beecham, he might have changed it, but as of 2 days ago, he had The Crown, and and I was just having to notice that. I thought, and I what he predicts, I kind of take slightly seriously, and I think it's arguable that The Crown is absolutely in contention. That third season was incredible. Really, in my opinion, I thought it was really well done, and it's got the requisite nominations up and down. So let's not necessarily discount it. But that morning show stuff that you guys talk about is kind of making me feel a little nervous for Succession now. And I think the problem for Succession, as Marcus said, is Jeremy Strong not being nominated.
Yeah.
But also, why wasn't it nominated last year?
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Because that was before it was cool and before people started to really catch on. I think that's what you could maybe argue. The label was slow to Succession.
I did hear from a consultant who works at the Globe, so take whatever you want from this, but they said they loved season 2 more than season 1 of Succession, which is why it's in, but they don't love it as much as some of these other shows, like The Morning Show, The Crown, Killing Eve are the 3 I heard that they're in love with. But then again, Killing Eve doesn't get Sandra Owen, so how could they love it?
Yeah, bizarre.
I don't know.
Sandra Oh keeps losing out on nominations, to be honest, and I don't quite understand why.
That's the typical. It's what happens after someone wins the Emmy, which was Jodie Comer. Then everyone else is going to nominate her, and then they drop Sandra Oh because they all rewarded her last year, and they're probably like, now it's Jodie's time, and they'll give her the nomination, and then let's see how the third season is, and the show might not get any next year at the Globes, for example.
Yeah.
So
let's move on to comedy. Comedy is really interesting because most people are suggesting that Fleabag will just do what it did at the Emmys, and I think that's fair enough. It's a fair enough argument. I'm predicting it, and I think it's one of the greatest series of the last few years. If anything's going to beat it, though, I think it could be something like, God Help Us, The Politician, or maybe even Maisel. The third season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was a revelation for me. And I think a lot of people are maybe dismissing that show a little. So what do you think? Are they going to go with the critical acclaim of Fleabag, or is that really a show that these older foreign journalists are really going to go for, or are they just going to go back to Maisel or perhaps maybe The Politician because it's a shiny new toy? What do you guys think? This one's a bit tougher for me.
Well, Rob, I agree with you that Fleabag is winning, and I disagree with you that this is an interesting race.
Okay, well, all right.
I agree.
You think it's a slam dunk then? And that's it?
Yeah, Fleabag is just too big. It's making all these best of the decade lists, even though it's so short, and apparently, nobody really cared for its first season, and then now suddenly it's the best thing ever. And
I think they're rewarding,
jump on that.
They're rewarding season 1 and 2 together. I think that's what the Emmys did. I think that's what all these other groups are doing in their nominations.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Fleabag is winning this easily. It's the show everyone loves. I don't know a single person that really doesn't like the show. It's the big thing at the moment. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is just doing incredibly well everywhere. I can't imagine them not giving it to the show. And you know what? It's British. And we're talking about the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. It's a very European show in its style. So I don't see how anything beats it. And The Politician, if it were a better show and if it had gotten more nominations than just the 2 it got, it's by no means a bad show, but I feel like Jessica Lange should have been an easy nomination if the show were popular among HFPA voters. And I think if they want to reward it somewhere, it'll be in a different category.
Yeah,
I do have him winning Ben Platt for actor.
Yeah, exactly.
Really? Okay. That would be interesting. I mean, let's finish off with that one. So in comedy actor, I'm just pulling it up. So we've got Michael Douglas, Bill Hader, Ben Platt, Paul Rudd, and Rami Youssef, which really made me so happy to see him nominated, because I was expecting Rami to be nominated at the Emmys and he missed out. I love that show. I think it's wonderful, really great, funny show on Hulu. And Paul Rudd is great in Living With Yourself. Michael Douglas obviously is a very popular guy who's done a really great job on Kaminsky, and obviously Bill Hader is a legend. But Ben Platt seems to be a name that I'm hearing a lot. A lot of people are saying that he could be again, the shiny new toy, the younger, interesting new guy that wins this award. I'm not predicting him. I think I'm still sticking with Bill Hader. Luca, you said that you're going. I think you're going with Ben Platt as well, right?
Yeah, because it's the type of performance they like to reward. It's showy, it's over the top. He sings, he cries, he's tossing around these weird one-liners sometimes. It's just, to me, the type of show or the type of actor they would want to reward. He's the hot up-and-coming actor who is about to get it, who could get an EGOT very soon. And I think it would be nice if Bill Hader won, because they haven't given it to him for Barry yet, but they didn't give it to him last year, and I don't know why all of a sudden they would give it to him in the second season, even after his second Emmy win. I just feel like Ben Platt is the typical Golden Globe winner, and I don't feel confident, as we have Paul Rudd and Rami Youssef here, other first-year shows competing, but those two don't have a series nomination, or those two series don't have a series nomination, which is what prevents me from predicting one of them.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
So, Riley, what about you? Where are you headed on this category?
Yeah, I'm not really sure why The Politician got into the comedy series category with the reviews that it had, other than to kind of justify a win for Ben Platt. So I've got Ben Platt. Having said that, I think this is maybe the one category, or one of a few categories, in which anybody can win. Because Michael Douglas could repeat, just because they love the Kominsky method. They gave it all its nominations again. Barry, I thought, would really fall off, because I didn't think that they really liked the show last year, but somehow it retained all of its nominations as well. So he could win for the second season, kind of like Aziz Ansari did a few years ago.
Right.
That one actually grew in support, but anyway. And Paul Rudd and Rami Youssef, they are not nominated with their series, but I could see them being like Rachel Bloom, where they kind of like are their series. So maybe they don't need a series nomination.
Yeah, and there's always exceptions, right? So that could be what happens there. Before we continue, Daniel Montgomery and Tony Ruiz are going to join us shortly, and they should probably get ready to go so that we can launch them into this.
Daniel's ready.
In a few minutes. Very good. Tony, get ready. Put that glass of wine down and get yourself ready to go. So to finish up with Luca and Marcus, is there a particular category that you are just so excited for, you cannot wait to see who wins? You've got 1.5 minutes each. Marcus, you first.
There's one that I'm really questioning, because whenever all of the most of the experts, most of the editors and top 24, whenever they all agree on something, I feel like I have to pick it, because if I go against it, I better have a really good reason to go against it. They're all going with Chernobyl for a limited series, but something's telling me Unbelievable could win. It's the female-centric show. All of the females got in that were, campaigned.
Yes.
And it was the most recent. And look, Chernobyl's great, but the Emmys did that. The Globes are all about rewarding something new and exciting and fresh, and that's Unbelievable. So I don't know.
Yeah, Chris and I have it.
Yeah, you do. I noticed that. Oh, I'm nervous now. Luca, you're the number one Unbelievable fan. So
yeah, that's the perfect story, because I loved Unbelievable. It was my favorite show of 2019, and it would make me so happy to see it win anything. I don't have it predicted for anything, and that pains me a lot, because I would love to see Merritt Weaver win. I would love to see the show win, as much as I like Chernobyl, but Unbelievable just blew me away. I'm very happy that Caitlin Dever got nominated, and I would not be surprised to see Toni Collette take supporting actress. That's one of those typical surprises I could absolutely see coming. But the reason why I'm sticking with Chernobyl in limited series is the fact that we're talking about a disaster that happened in Europe, a show that just swept the Emmys completely, the show that got also 4 nominations at the Globes. I just don't see how they're going to have it go home without the limited series prize. But you know what? If they want to give Netflix something and they're not going to give The Crown a lot of love, this might be the place to do it. So I am really, really, praying that Unbelievable gets something tonight.
I have a question for Riley real fast. So if you're picking Unbelievable, are you picking any of the actresses to win, or is it just going to be the series win in your mind?
I've got Toni Collette.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's really exciting to me. I would love. I just don't know how
Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter can lose this, quite frankly. But I mean, who cares? Like, they can just go with whoever they like. And Toni Collette is a legend. This will make up for her snubs for Hereditary last year. And I just think she is so bloody good and unbelievable. So is Merritt Weaver and Caitlin Dever. They're all excellent. It's a really good show. I just think the Globes won't necessarily want to overlook Chernobyl. I think they'll be embarrassed to do so. That's how I kind of think of it, like Fleabag. Like, it's such a critically acclaimed work of art, best of the decade type show. They will have to give it something. Like, they'll feel like they'll have to do it almost, which is ridiculous, but that's kind of why I can't get off Chernobyl, which who knows? Like
I think Chernobyl has cooled more than Fleabag, though. Like, there's an opportunity here.
It's true. I agree with that.
Yeah, you could be right.
Yeah. So much to talk about. Unfortunately, we are probably going to have to say goodbye to Luca and Marcus now, because we're about to have Daniel and Tony join us. So while that's happening, just sit here and just stare at the wall. No. Let's just. Riley, are they ready to come in? I'm just.
Should I just boot these guys or? What?
Yeah, I think we should. Let's say goodbye to Marcus and to Luca. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you, and we'll see you very soon. And here we are. It's just the two of us again. Bringing in Daniel. There's Tony. Great to see you, Tony and Daniel. Welcome. So just in case anyone has been living under a rock, joining us now are Tony Ruiz in Northern California and Daniel Montgomery in New York. So great to see you both. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Riley's a blonde.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He is our Golden Globe today, and we're loving it. We're just loving it. So, guys, we've already talked, obviously, about a bunch of categories, and we will probably have to revisit some of those because I really want to hear from the both of you of what you think. But then I also want to talk about some categories that we haven't talked about yet. So we'll hopefully have time to do that. So let's spend 20 minutes talking about the film categories, and let's just quickly go over Best Drama Film, because that one is not as a slam dunk, and there's a lot of arguments for and against various films in that category. And I think I'm going for Joker. Riley's going for Marriage Story. What about you guys? Daniel, where are you headed right now in that category, given that we have 20 minutes until our prediction center is closed?
I had The Irishman for a while, just sort of after the nominations were announced by default. It had the writing and directing, and then over the weeks, days and weeks, I got this sinking feeling, and then I moved over to Joker, and that's where I am now. And I'm oddly confident in it, even though I know it's hardly a slam dunk. But like, it just feels like The Irishman is missing something. They didn't nominate The Irishman for The Irishman. That feels like it means something. It might not. It could still win, but it's something that it probably should have gotten if they loved it. And Marriage Story doesn't have a directing nomination, even though it has the most nominations, which, again, they nominated Noah Baumbach for writing, so they didn't snub him per se, but if they really loved it, they would have nominated it twice. They nominated Quentin Tarantino and Bong Joon-ho for both writing and directing. They could have just given them one or the other. So, like, everything else is missing a little bit of something. So I feel like with that director nomination for Joker, it's the only one that, like, decisively overperformed. So it feels more like that weird sort of critical, this very divisive film that the Globes go for, like Bohemian Rhapsody last year.
Joker's a really savvy pick, and I'm impressed that so many people are jumping on the bandwagon.
Really? Why are you surprised? Like, I mean, to me, it just seems kind of like I'm pretty confident about Joker. You're feeling more surprised?
Well, it's been like critically bashed, and it did overperform. But you look at the morning show on the TV side, where it's in a similar situation, did great in nominations, but the critics didn't like it, so nobody's predicting that really.
Well, the thing about Joker is that critics did like the critical reaction to Joker was interesting in a way that helps it on the award scene, which is that people who hated it, and a lot of people hated it. The people who loved it think it's a masterpiece. And the thing about an award is that you can't cast negative votes. Like, you can vote for something or against it. If 50% of the voters think something is a masterpiece and 50% think it's the worst thing ever made, 50% is going to win. It's enough to win the award. So I feel like it's in the boat where it might have enough passionate support, not just here, but throughout the award season. that, I mean, it's not like anyone can really, cast a vote to take votes away from it. So I feel like that passion might be enough to keep it up.
Tony?
I'm being stubborn and I'm sticking with The Irishman. I can't even say that I'm that confident, and maybe one of you can talk me into something other than Joker, because I just don't. I refuse to jump on this Joker thing. I feel like if anything is going to, I feel like the Irishman is the safe choice. Joker, when you're dealing with a small group like the foreign press, we don't know. Yeah, it got enough to get nominated. Does it have enough to win? You have much lower margins of what has to have the most support. I don't know, because I've also heard a lot of talk about 1917 as well. I'm not sure I buy that.
That would make me the happiest if that were to happen, but I feel like it needed a little bit something more to not feel like an afterthought in this category, and it makes me. I would have loved to see a surprise acting nomination or writing nomination, but yeah, I'm not. I'm gonna hold out to be pleasantly surprised by that. But.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I just think Joker is the box office smash. It's becoming, from what I hear from other people who are not in the bubble, more of a pop cultural phenomenon. It's quite popular, and Bohemian Rhapsody has a similar narrative. And for me, that was enough for me to switch from The Irishman, which I think they have put in their predictions so they can kind of look like they have some gravitas. But they like what they like. They went for Avatar over The Hurt Locker. They went for Bohemian Rhapsody. They want to look like they're smart film nerds, but ultimately they are old foreign journalists, and outside the film Twitter bubble and the blogosphere, Joker is really, really popular. And yeah, I just can see that happening, and that's why I made this switch. So that's going to be a really interesting category. I'm so looking forward to that being announced.
Yeah, I've got 15 minutes to change my mind. So
you sure do. Before we move on to comedy, we haven't really had a chance to talk about the drama acting categories yet, and a lot of the talk is about Joaquin Phoenix winning for Joker. If Joker's going to win anything, to me, it's probably that, most of all. And then on the actress side, there seems to be still a lot of support for Renee Zellweger, but I don't see her being as much of a favorite as she was well in the beginning of award season, before all the awards started coming out. And in that category, you could absolutely make a case for someone like Saoirse Ronan or Scarlett Johansson or Charlize Theron, even Cynthia Erivo. So, guys, what do you think? Actually, I want to go Riley first, because we haven't really had a chance to talk about the acting categories. Where are you headed on those two categories at the moment?
Yeah, actress can kind of go anywhere. I have Renee Zellweger. And for actor, I have Joaquin Phoenix. I thought that he was going to sweep through the season, but I said that he was a lock at the Australian Academy Awards. And Rob, I want your take on what we learned at those awards, where Adam Driver won and Saoirse Ronan won. And it's an industry voted award. Often their choices seem kind of out of left field, and then they're justified in hindsight, where we have cases like Birdman sweeping, and then we don't even clue in until after the ceremony, except Daniel, I think, that it's even winning the Oscar for screenplay. Or there's a couple of years ago where Willem Dafoe and Laurie Metcalf were far ahead, and then the Australians, they awarded Alison Janney and Sam Rockwell, and then they won every award after that point. So what do you think about Adam Driver winning, especially since Joker overperformed with that group, even getting into screenplay?
Yeah, it was really surprising to me. A lot of people dismiss the Australian Academy because it's very new and it's from a country on the other side of the planet that no one really cares about. But it does have a lot of overlap in voting membership with BAFTA and the American Academy. And I was very surprised to see Joker not perform there as much as I thought it was going to. And having Adam Driver win, I really cannot explain that. Apart from the fact that it's an amazing performance and Marriage Story is very accessible here because it's on Netflix, perhaps maybe that could be a reason. Saoirse Ronan won because, as far as I'm aware, because I was I could see how many screenings there was for Little Women very early on in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, in the major capitals. I went to one of those screenings, and there was a lot of media there, and a lot of people who I know are probably part of the Actor Academy. And so I was thinking about Saoirse Ronan for a while winning that. And then when I realized that she had won, when I received the tweet about it, because I wasn't at the ceremony, I was like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense to me that she won that. Judy was really a non-starter that film was a non-starter here in Australia, and perhaps the Academy here just didn't love it as much. So it's interesting that we've got those two performances are absolutely in the running here, and Little Women has done so well over the last few days and weeks in terms of its popularity and also its critical acclaim. So we need to be very mindful that these categories are not necessarily slam dunks. Tony, where are you headed on these two categories?
I've got Zellweger in actress. I think I have Scarlett Johansson in second, but I've got Saoirse Ronan in third. With actor, my 1 and 2 are still Phoenix and Driver, and then I've also got Banderas in third. There is the one thing that will be really interesting, and I think this goes back to the argument about Joker winning picture, is that this would be really untested because this is a comic book movie. Was Bohemian Rhapsody certainly was more, despite the critical thing, this was about a real person that everybody knew. Whereas, we're kind of in uncharted territory about a performance in a comic book movie. And so, with the exception of, say, like Heath Ledger for the same character, but, giving it Best Picture, I think that could be interesting. But I still think I think Phoenix is probably the safest choice, but it would not surprise me, particularly with the Hollywood Foreign Press, to see them, go out of left field and pick like Driver or Banderas. Banderas coming off the When It Can certainly puts him, I think, higher than we might think.
Daniel?
It now dawns on me that like Joaquin Phoenix is like the third actor to earn a Globe nomination for playing the Joker, unless I'm missing someone, because Jack Nicholson was nominated for a Golden Globe too for the first Batman movie. So that might be the most nominated Globe character in history, next to one of the Queens, Elizabeth. But yeah, I've got Joaquin Phoenix. I know Adam Driver can win that one. There's so much support for Marriage Story, 6 nominations. He's sort of having a hot streak with, not just his film career, but with the Tony nomination he just got. It feels like he's one of those, in those, everything he touches turns to gold kind of periods of his career awards wise. But I just feel like that director nomination, especially for Joker, tells me that the support for that film is not impossible to surmount, but it's probably the safest I feel in an acting category is Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, even though I do think that's probably still a 2-man race. Actress, I'm one of the people going away from the Zellweger train, and I'm going with Scarlett Johansson. I'm a little bit skeptical about how Zellweger is going to do, just because it feels a little bit like The Wife, where it's like no one is really talking about that movie or really caring about that movie except for the performance. And Zellweger doesn't even have the overdue narrative, though she does have the comeback narrative. She's won a bunch of Globes. She's won an Oscar before. So I don't know if there's like an urgency to reward her. And this might be like her first major test where we see if this is something that's just going to steamroll her through the season, or if it was kind of much ado about really nothing. And I love that performance, and I like even the film as a whole better than most people who seem to think it's a really great performance and a not great film. But Scarlett Johansson has the overdue narrative. The Globes like her way more than everyone else has. Like this is her 5th nomination, and she's never even been nominated at the Oscars. She has Jojo Rabbit, which she didn't get nominated for here, but it's still a Best Picture nominee at these awards. So she has the 1-2 punch. And Marriage Story is a film that they like better. It's nominated for Best Picture. It's 3 acting nominations, writing nomination, music nomination. So, and this is a good place to go for it, especially since I'm predicting Jennifer Lopez in supporting. So this could be a place to kind of check Marriage Story off their list, which they don't always do. Sometimes something will go 0 for 6. It has happened before and in recent history. But yeah, I'm going Joaquin and Scarlett.
You know, I'm actually thinking, how can the two popes go home empty-handed? That film was really, really, I think it overperformed, and I think something, it's going to win something I haven't quite worked out. Well, yeah, it could be screenplay, it could be supporting actor, could even be actor for Jonathan Pryce. Let's be honest, anything could happen here, right? Because we're talking about 90 or 80, whatever odd people who are voting for this thing, so it doesn't take a lot to win one of these things. And also, I think Irishman's going to go home empty-handed tonight as well. That's something that I have a feeling about, like it did at the actors, which, by the way, I think is more relevant than some people are suggesting. We're going to move over to comedy because we don't have a lot of time. And what I'd like to pose to Daniel and Tony specifically are why Once Upon a Time in Hollywood won't win, and what is your frontrunner for the two main acting prizes. And yeah, why don't we just go with Tony first? What do you think? Because they're really interesting categories.
Yeah, Prediction Center is already closed for that. So,
sorry guys, you had a few minutes to go, but it looks like it's closing. Sorry.
The thing about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that I think makes it not necessarily, I'm predicting it, but I don't think it's a slam dunk for it. I do think something, say, like my spoiler for that category is Knives Out, which would make me very, 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 very happy because I love that movie. The thing about when you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you know, it's classified in the comedy musical category. How funny is it?
Well,
you know,
it's sort of an absurdist comedy. It really, like, it makes a lot more sense to me than a lot of things they've put in
than
comedy.
The Martian. Yeah.
Than The Martian. Than My Week with Marilyn. Than, you know, it feels comedic, even if it's not always funny. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So you know, the thing is that is such a it's very much a Hollywood film, but it's an American Hollywood film, and I'm not sure if, you know, the appreciation of Hollywood lore will translate over to the foreign press as much as, say, like the American press or those of us that are steeped in this stuff. And Knives Out certainly has a more kind of international feel for it with this ensemble cast, and I think. I still think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is probably winning. I'm not predicting Leo in Best Actor. I'm going with Eddie Murphy on that one. I do think that Ana de Armas has a really good shot to win Comedy Actress, and if she picks that up, I think, you know, that could also bode well for that in Best Picture. So that's kind of where I am on that one.
Daniel?
It's hard for me to make a case for anything besides Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because I feel like if there was going to be a spoiler, we would have seen that somewhere in other categories. I mean, I love, again, Knives. If it were like a 1917 Knives Out night, like 2 of my top 5 favorite films of the year, both winning, I will be absolutely thrilled. But like, we didn't see, I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the only thing in this category that is nominated anywhere else besides a comedy musical category, except for that songwriting nomination for Rocket Man, which kind of barely counts in terms of like no writing, no directing, no supporting even. Once Upon a Time is the only thing that's nominated against other films that aren't comedies and musicals. So Jojo Rabbit is a film that I thought could have easily been nominated for writing or directing. Knives Out is such a writer-driven movie, just with that, you know, very twisty plot screenplay, that Rian Johnson could have gotten in for writing that. So I feel like if there was really support for it, for something besides Once Upon a Time, we would have seen it in some other categories, which is not to say that it's 100% a lot, because I actually could see something like Rocket Man, the Globes just saying, screw you, we like Rocket Man a lot, which sort of like they did with Bohemian Rhapsody. But, and that's a film that was never going to get into like writing or directing probably. So it probably maxed out the nominations that it could have gotten. But I think really that's kind of the only case I could make.
Okay. It's a tough one though, because like I don't know. I'm not completely convinced about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Riley,
Well,
we talked. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. Just the Globes, they love their stars, right? And Quentin Tarantino is a star, so he started ahead in the director and screenplay race. And a nomination for him is not necessarily an indication that they love the movie. The problem is just that they didn't really seem to love any of the other ones either.
Yeah. Before we move on to TV, I just want to quickly ask very briefly, if we don't have a lot of time, director is a tough one for me as well. A lot of people are picking Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, which would be really historical. Foreign film directors don't often win here. That would be cool. I'd love to see that. Parasite is a masterpiece. Most of us, I think, really loved that film. But again, this could be, I'm looking at the list: Sam Mendes, Todd Phillips, Martin Scorsese, and Quentin Tarantino, and you could make an argument for all of them. Are we all going with Bong Joon-ho at the moment, or is someone going to pick someone else?
I'm going with that.
Yeah, me too. I'm not entirely confident. I think that category is a weird one. It's one of those cases where they could take care of every single one of those people somewhere else. Like Parasite's a winning foreign film. That's just kind of a given. And Once Upon a Time, like we talked about, it feels really strong for Best Picture, comedy or musical, so they can sort of take care of Tarantino there, even though I'm not sure if he's a producer, but if he would technically win that one, but it would still sort of be like, here's one for Tarantino. So yeah, and Scorsese, again, if I'm predicting Joker for picture, they could go here and say, like, if they want to sort of hedge their bets Oscar-wise and still be seen as an Oscar prognosticator, and they don't want to be out in the cold on The Irishman just in case, they might give it here, which is possible. So I think it's between those three, and although I would say Sam Mendes, I wouldn't totally count him out. The only one I think here the nomination is Todd Phillips. I see his nomination being a sign of the strength of the film overall, but I can't, and watch it happen now, I can't imagine him winning Best Director.
There'll be some headlines there.
Sure will. And in the screenplay category, that to me is like the Netflix category, and the one category where I think The Two Popes could surprise everybody, because it's the thing about the film that people seem to most really appreciate is the screenplay. So any thoughts on screenplay before we move over to TV?
Oh, I think that category is giving me a lot of angst, because I think you can make cases for all of the nominees there. But yeah, I don't know why I have this strange feeling about The Two Popes. I think it totally could happen. That said, I think I can't even remember what I'm predicting there. I think I'm predicting, I don't remember.
I'm going with Marriage Story sort of by default, just because I feel like, again, 6 nominations, they clearly liked it. It's a very writerly movie. And it's the case of a film where I can see the Hollywood Foreign Press members looking at their ballots going like, where do I go, if anywhere, to reward Marriage Story? And that feels like a really good place to do it. That said, I think this is maybe the one category where any of the 5 nominees could win, because The Two Popes is a very writerly movie. It's literally 2 old guys sitting around in rooms talking, and it's just front-loaded screenplay like that. Quentin Tarantino, he's won a couple times before for writing. Parasite, that storytelling, that plot, that is one of the twistier kind of nominees, and that really foregrounds the writing. The Irishman, honestly, I might put The Irishman 5th out of these nominees, which is weird for a film that could still legitimately win Best Picture. But yeah, any single one of those films could win.
I think
Okay.
Parasite is winning either screenplay or director, but I can't tell in which category it is stronger. I think that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is definitely stronger in director, and I think Marriage Story is obviously stronger in screenplay. So I don't know what kind of split they're going to do, but I think it's between those three films, and Parasite has to win something.
And actually, Once Upon a Time could pull a Green Book by going picture, supporting actor, and screenplay.
I feel like they've awarded Quentin Tarantino enough in screenplay, and I think that he has a good narrative about how he's never won director. And I feel like his narrative in director is much stronger than Martin Scorsese, for example. And
although you
those
do have
movies
to
are
wonder,
kind of, yeah.
You do have to wonder, do people even, I think so many people see Tarantino more of as a writer than even as a director. So, he could just be like, oh, Tarantino's nominated in screenplay, we're going to check that one off. I think you're right, Riley, but I think it could also work the opposite way as well.
Let's move over to TV. So before Daniel and Tony joined us, we were talking about comedy series and whether Fleabag was the slam dunk that many of us believe it probably is, given that it's so critically acclaimed. It swept at the Emmys. It's like on a lot of best of the decade lists. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is having her moment. So I'm not prepared to not predict Fleabag. Although in the acting categories, it's a different story. Although while Phoebe Waller-Bridge is probably the favorite there, it's a very strong category, and I could definitely see like Rachel Brosnahan return, or one of the new people like Christina Applegate, Kirsten Dunst, and Natasha Lyonne. I'm surprised there. And on the actor side, a lot of us are going for Ben Platt. I'm still going for Bill Hader. He hasn't won yet at the Globes. And I would love to see someone like Rami Youssef win, because I really, really love that show. So it's a really interesting three categories, and I'd love to hear from you first, Daniel. What are your thoughts on the comedy categories at the Globes?
Just kind of Fleabag. I did hear Riley say before, I disagree that this is an interesting category. I think I might agree with Riley that best comedy series feels almost like a foregone conclusion. It just swept the Emmys, which might make it seem like been there, done that, but there's nothing in this category that's as cool. That is like, it aired the second season back in the spring. People remember that way more than they remember The Politician, which just aired. A couple of other like potentially cool nominees that they could have put in there didn't get in. On Becoming a God, I think that's the kind of Globesy show that could have won if it had gotten in, and maybe Dunst too, had that been nominated, but it didn't get nominated. Russian Doll didn't get nominated, even though Natasha Lyonne did. Dead to Me didn't get nominated, even though Christina Applegate got in. So I really don't see any real vulnerability for Fleabag there. And it's sort of the same for Best Actress. Rachel Brosnahan, they select Maisel, but I don't see why this season they'd go back to it. They gave it Best Series, Best Actress like 2 years ago. It's Fleabag's moment. I think Best Actor is a toughie. I do have Bill Hader there. I would be skeptical about how much support there is for Barry, but they did put Winkler in again, and if they didn't like Barry, they didn't have to do that. It's like, some shows they just like grudgingly nominate because it's there and we're kind of supposed to like it, but like there's like 5 slots for every supporting actor in television, and they found room for Henry Winkler. So I think there's probably enough support for him to win there. Again, it's a case where other people who could have won didn't get the series nomination. Rami Youssef, Paul Rudd. If Paul Rudd had gotten the series nomination, I'd be predicting Paul Rudd. But yeah, so those are my 3, which means they'd repeat the Emmys in those 3 categories, which is a weird thing to predict at the Globes, but I think that might line up this way.
Tony?
Yeah, I'm playing it really safe here with just Fleabag and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I'm also going out on kind of a limb and predicting Andrew Scott in supporting actor, because
that's not a limb. He's the front runner.
We're all predicting Andrew Scott.
I'm predicting
cool.
Andrew Scott too.
Cool.
That has to happen.
But I'm still sticking with. Sometimes the Globes take a while to catch up. Look at how long it took them to finally give Breaking Bad what it deserved. Luckily, season 2 of Barry was in many ways even more acclaimed than the first season. So now they're kind of, I feel like it's a perfect opportunity for them to play catch up with that one. I have Platt in second, but I'm actually thinking of putting Paul Rudd in second instead of Platt.
It's too late.
Oh, that's right. Too late. Can't do that.
You're done.
Oh well.
You're screwed.
You can do so in spirit.
You can do anything in spirit, and
You will
and
not
you know
get
what? You
credit
do.
for anything you do in spirit, but
No,
you can.
And he
get
does
no
a lot
credit.
of things in spirit. You're
I
very
get no
screwed
I get no satisfaction. But yeah,
okay.
yeah. I just feel like I don't see the Globes couldn't possibly. I cannot imagine they have enough self-awareness to know that if they don't give it at least comedy to Fleabag and probably Phoebe Waller-Bridge, they're going to look ridiculous. As being like the one organization that completely ignored Fleabag.
Well,
And they're going to look uncool, which they would hate.
they are going to look
Well,
on that note.
If they worried about looking uncool, then they wouldn't have changed the freaking trophy design.
Oh, that really annoys
Oh God,
you.
I hate that. Oh.
But we digress. Talking about that argument is very important for the limited series categories, because we talked about that before you guys joined us. Because to me, Chernobyl did very well in nominations, and I think that they will feel like they have to award Chernobyl because it's cool, acclaimed, best of the decade, won everything at the Emmys, disaster in Europe, historical, HBO. It's just got all the little things that you can tick off. But if they want to be different, or if they want to start a new trend for this new award season with the Emmys coming up in September, Unbelievable would probably be a better pick for them, especially given the 3 actresses from that show are also nominated. And that's why those categories are so interesting to me. So although I still have Chernobyl, and I think in the acting categories, just quickly looking at those, I currently have Russell Crowe, actually, because I just think, because I'm being an idiot. And on the actress side,
he could win. Yeah,
I think he kind of could, but we'll go there in a sec. I think I have Michelle Williams. That's the safe bet in actress. I'd love to hear from you guys as well, because these categories are giving me a slight bit of heartburn too. Daniel, where are you headed in the limited movie categories?
I'm going with Chernobyl. The Emmys or the Golden Globes do like to kind of be the first sometimes. Like every once in a while there's a Dana Mora or an Honorable Woman where they sort of get out first on something. But they also have a history, especially in the long form categories, of just taking that Emmy sweep and just rubber stamping it. People versus O.J. Simpson, Big Little Lies, Gianni Versace, win, win, win. And they just kind of go along on that bandwagon. And especially When They See Us there, like they really made a big choice to go with Chernobyl over When They See Us among the big Emmy players. I do think Unbelievable is a really close second. I would not be surprised at all if it upsets. I wouldn't even necessarily call it an upset. I think it's really a 2 nominee race there. But yeah, I think they just might go with the Chernobyl bandwagon. They nominated all 3 major actors, including both in the supporting races. They're all European. They're all like differently European. Like you got 2 Brits and like a Swede, and the whole production just feels very Globesy in a kind of Wolf Hall kind of way, even though that didn't win anything else and then it won the Globe. So I'm going there. I am really worried about Russell Crowe, but I'm playing it safe, which actually doesn't feel that safe with Jared Harris, because to pair up Chernobyl and an acting award. I'm going with Jared Harris there, since Jarrell Jerome was snubbed. But
still can't quite get over that one.
Yeah, but the Russell Crowe nomination, he's a bigger star. It's a bigger showier performance. They nominated Loudest Voice in the top category, which is a sign. I mean, sometimes they'll nominate something in the top category to signal that they want to give it the acting award. And that could be a clear place where it's just like the series nomination is the token nomination, but they're going to give it to Crowe. So that could happen. I'm also going with Michelle Williams in the actress race, but I actually think the upset to watch for there is Caitlin Dever. She's the heart of that show. She, it's a much showier performance than Merritt Wever gives. It's the performance that launches the show. She's the central character in the first episode. Merritt Wever and Toni Collette don't show up until after. She has Booksmart, which they nominated Beanie Feldstein for, which shows that they like that movie, and so it's a big year for her. So if they Dan Amora or Honorable Woman anyone here, I think it could be her. Though I do think the vote split potential does hurt her.
Tony.
Yeah, I never wavered on Chernobyl. I think it's just one of those series that just runs the gambit, and we've seen that many times. I have Jared Harris. I also have I have Jared Harris winning. I have Russell Crowe in second. If The Spy had been in limited series, I'd actually probably be predicting Sacha Baron Cohen. But I have him in third right now, so I think he is definitely a possibility. I don't think anybody other than Michelle Williams is going to win actress. And then, although, let me just never second guess Helen Mirren playing a historical queen.
A monarch, yeah.
This would be her third, I think, because she won for Queen Elizabeth I and the second in the same year.
Yeah. It's just like, if there's ever a third Elizabeth Queen and she's still alive, she needs to play her, and then she'll win more awards. Riley, I haven't asked you about lead actor in a limited series yet. What are you picking for that one?
I've got Sacha Baron Cohen. I had him winning before nominations. I predicted that The Spy would not get a series nomination. I did not predict Jharrel Jerome to be snubbed entirely, but I never thought that Jharrel Jerome fit the mold of winners in this category. They didn't go with Riz Ahmed. They tend to go with people more like Ewan McGregor and Tom Hiddleston, and I don't know, people of that kind of age range who have been around, maybe don't have an Oscar nomination, but maybe should have at some point. And Sacha Baron Cohen, he's a Globe favorite. He's gotten in when he is not at the Oscars and at the Emmys. He's playing against type here. It's a much showier performance than Jared Harris is giving. I don't think that Chernobyl is seen as an acting vehicle, one that will be awarded for its acting ever. And every year we do have a nominee. On average, we get one that doesn't have a series nomination. And I think this is where we're going to find that, since the category is relatively open.
Yeah. I know in TV supporting actress, Riley, you're picking Toni Collette, which makes me very happy. I expect to see at least one or two Australians win tonight, and if it doesn't happen, I'll be very annoyed. I'm not picking her, though, because I'm not patriotic. I think I'm still going with Helena Bonham Carter because I'm gutless. What about you guys? Where are you going with TV supporting actress? And then just tell me about your supporting actor as well while you're at it.
I'm gutless. I'm going Helena Bonham Carter.
I was going Meryl Streep for a while, and then I was convinced earlier this week to switch to Helena Bonham Carter. They really like The Crown this season. 4 nominations. It's sort of like been there, done that show with them, except that it's sort of brand new with this brand new cast. Helena Bonham Carter is a huge star. It's a showy performance. It feels like the place to go for that show, especially if it's not going to win the lead categories, and I don't think it's going to win drama series either. So I could see that being how they honor the show. So I'd never, ever count out Meryl Streep. But, she has the most wins, but she also has, I would assume, the most losses because she's been nominated 350 times. And she's lost more than she's won. So we know they love her enough to nominate her all the time, but they don't always love her enough to win. And I do think Toni Collette is up there with them. I think it's going to be one of those 3, but I'm going Helena. And Andrew Scott for supporting actor, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
The Globes, they really try to spread the wealth, and you do try to keep that in mind when you're making your predictions. Like, make sure that all the networks are covered, all the shows are covered. Of course, there are always shows that they don't feel a need to award, and I feel like The Crown is one of those shows this year. I think The Crown has been amply awarded by the Golden Globes, and that they didn't award it anything for its superior second season shows that it's not one of their all-time favorites that they need to check off every single year. I think, kind of like Tom was saying in the other slugfest, it was so boring. So I feel like
No.
The Crown is
No.
like it was good, but
Silly.
it's not that exciting. It's not
So good.
hot
Okay.
and new
Fair enough.
like the Globes tend to
I
award.
kind of think it is. I think it's
Yeah, I kind of think it is too.
new-ish. But yeah,
I think
I
it's
see where it's coming from.
yeah, it's one of those things where like there are certain signs of weaknesses that I would look for. I feel like Olivia Colman was always going to get nominated. Helena Bonham Carter could have gotten nominated if they liked the show or not liked the show. The fact that they put Tobias Menzies in that Best Actor race tells me that they're still into it.
I like it.
Yeah.
They're also putting
so-
Kit
So
Harington.
it could go 0-4-4. Like there's always something. Like, I'm actually predicting tragically because it's one of my favorites of the year. Unbelievable to go 0-4, even though I have it ranked second in Best Limited Series
so
and Best
close.
Actress. I have it
Yeah.
second in both those categories. Sort of like the Two
Yeah.
Popes. Like I know it could win a couple of those, but I don't think there's anyone where it's out front.
Yeah.
So
So look, Charles Bright and Zach Laws should probably get themselves ready to go, so we can join them into this chat, and then we can catapult Daniel and Tony out of it. Unfortunately,
We have Charlie here. Let's just
Great.
throw him in.
Let's just bring him in. Hello, Mr. Bright. My favorite Virginian is now joining us. Thank you. Welcome.
The Commonwealth to another Commonwealth.
Thank you. Absolutely. And when Zach's ready, we'll get him in as well. Final thoughts from Daniel and Tony before we then unceremoniously kick you out.
Go ahead, Daniel. You're first.
honestly, like I don't have like as much invested emotionally in this year's awards, so I just kind of hope I'm right more than I hope I'm I'm not doing as many hope dictions, for instance. So like if I'm wrong, it's usually going to be for the better. Like if 1917 beats the Joker, like I will have gotten that wrong, but yay. If Knives Out beats Once Upon a Time, that will be a win for me. Basically anything Parasite wins will be a win for me, and The Human Race, because that film is amazing. I hope Unbelievable wins something, and I want good things for good shows and movies.
There's nothing wrong with that. And with that, we say goodbye to Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the night. Tony, quick final thoughts before Zach and Charlie strangle you.
Well, everything Daniel said, I'm really interested to see what the show is like. Ricky Gervais is always a wild card, and since we've had this, it's ironic we haven't had that many of them, but these shows without hosts, it almost is like a new refreshing thing that there's a host for one of these things. It'll be interesting to see how that plays. Gervais got himself into a little bit of hot water this last week. Which might only make him better. The thing I worry about with the show is the usual thing. The host is there, then you never see them again for practically the rest of the show. And then it's just awkward presenter banter and
same old.
Bad jokes, same old. So hoping that it's a good show.
All right, we'll see you later. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Ta-ta.
Get a job.
Get a job. And I can also now welcome Zach Laws from LA. So great to see you again. It's been a few months since I had the privilege of hanging out with some of these guys in LA, and we had so much fun. We laughed and laughed and laughed. So, guys,
that was the best part of the vacation, was just getting to chill with you, especially like after the Emmys. It was just
I know. It was the best. I can't wait to do it again, hopefully soon. So,
Hey, Rob.
Well, since your continent is on fire, you may have to relocate. So
I'm thinking I may have to relocate. I can barely breathe. It's pretty bad. Sorry, Riley, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, look at these guys' outfits. And, I brought my hair. And what did you bring, Rob? You have AirPods?
I'm actually not wearing pants. So
he brought his charisma. That's what he brought.
Thank you. And by charisma, I mean no pants. I love the outfits, and I love that Golden Globe hair. It's just killing me. I love it. We've talked a lot about a lot of these categories, and I don't want to necessarily rehash, but I absolutely want to hear what you guys have to say about them. So we'll spend about 15 minutes on the film stuff, so try to be mindful of timing. So the drama categories, just Zach, let us know where you're headed in terms of drama, actor, and actress.
Drama actor and actress, I have Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, which I also think is going to win Best Drama Film. I think that, there's obviously a lot of people who are thinking that it's going to be Adam Driver, but I just have the feeling that the, let's say, commitment of Joaquin Phoenix is going to be too strong to ignore. Drama actress, I think it's Renee Zellweger. It's pretty much seems like the easiest call of the night. I again, like Marriage Story star Scarlett Johansson seems to be the spoiler, but I think that when you compare it to the sort of transformation that Zellweger undergoes, it's undeniable. So that's what I'm picking. And I can't change it at this point because our prediction center is closed. So, Charlie, anything you say is not going to be able to sway me.
Well, I haven't been able to change my. I placed restriction on myself because I entered into a betting pool, and those got closed off at noon. So, whatever I had then, I was stuck with. So, I had Joker in picture, and I also have Joaquin in actor. The Globes always seem like this would be the easiest win for Joaquin. If I was thinking before Joker came out, if the movie got the awards traction that it has now gotten, the Globes would be the easiest pick. Would be the easiest one for him to win, and he could very well end up sweeping. In actress, I just switched today from Renee Zellweger to Scarlett Johansson. I think that I think there's also just a star factor with her. The fact that she's gotten nominated occasionally, but she's never won a Golden Globe before, right?
Not that I know of, no.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything. So I think that would be an interesting choice that fits their MO.
Okay. So on the comedy side, I think we could probably skip over film, comedy, or musical because most of us are expecting Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to win that. Unless you think something else is going to win, we might skip that.
No.
It's pretty much in the bag. It's as Daniel said earlier, it's the only film in these categories where it's also been nominated in non-comedy musical categories, and that's a very big sign. But in the actor and actress categories, I think they are not necessarily slam dunks. And although I think Ana de Armas is going to give Aquafina a run for her money in the actor category, I don't know what to say because Leo could win, Eddie Murphy could win, but I'm actually predicting Taron Egerton. I just want to go for something a little bit unusual, and I think they love Rocket Man. I really, really believe that they do. So what about you, Charlie? Where are you headed on the comedy categories?
In actor, I actually do have Taron Egerton winning. It is a very tough decision with Eddie Murphy, but I know they're very different voters, but the fact that he got in a SAG, right? Because I can never keep track of these. Yeah, he gets it at SAG, and Eddie Murphy didn't. And I know they're two different voting bodies, but I think I really think that that's one that they're going to because I also feel like when you take in like the star account, Taron Egerton is more of a modern star, and Eddie Murphy, while still being a star, also feels like a bit of a throwback. So that's how I feel, and I think Aquafina is going to win actress comedy, though Ana de Armas would not surprise me one bit. And then just watch it, give it to Kate Blanchett.
Taron Egerton certainly has been campaigning harder than just about anybody. I mean, I'm surprised that he hasn't taken out some of those Melissa Leo Consider Me.
By the pool. In a lovely white dress by the pool.
You're right. Yeah, exactly.
He would rock that shit.
Oh, he would look so good.
But I'm sticking with Eddie Murphy because it is kind of a toss-up category. Leo is still in it to win it. He's obviously very popular with the Globes. But, Eddie, he has like this comeback narrative that is very appealing. And, the fact that he hosted Saturday Night Live right in the middle of voting, to great acclaim and to high ratings, I think that all that helps him, It wouldn't surprise me if Taron Egerton won, but I feel like the award that Rocket Man's going to win will be in song. So I think they're going to kind of spread the wealth a little bit. cats. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Oh
Uh,
my god.
and as far as actress goes, I mean, Aquafina, I think it was Riley who said that she's the most likely to get an Oscar nomination out of any of those women, and that's about as good of logic as I can think of to pick her. Although Ana de Armas would not be a surprising choice either. Neither would Beanie Feldstein, just because of how funny and charming she is in that movie. And wouldn't it be funny to see both her and Caitlin Dever win awards tonight? But I think I'm just going to stick with the most likely Oscar contender of the bunch.
Okay. In supporting actress, do any of you believe that Jennifer Lopez will not walk away with this? Because that will irritate me if she doesn't.
I think I do have her predicted, but I think that category is a very, very closer matchup than one might think.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is that I think Laura Dern is going to win the Oscar. But I don't necessarily think she's going to have to win this in order to win that. She's won about 4 Golden Globes throughout her career, something like that. Yeah, she's won just about as many as Leo has, which is why Leo probably has less of a shot than say Taron or Eddie. But in terms of Laura Dern, it could be like the only win for Marriage Story. It could be the start of her steamrolling throughout the season. And just last year, we were all thinking that Lady Gaga's star power would, propel her towards a win in Best Actress for A Star Is Born. That didn't happen. They just went with who they thought was going to be the Oscar frontrunner. But we saw that was not the case. So I'm just going to go with Jennifer Lopez because it seems right for them, but it would not surprise me if Laura Dern just kind of took it as part of a steamroll throughout the season.
Yeah. Let's answer that question from Marcus about whether we're excited to see Ricky Gervais host again. I'm always excited, although I didn't like his last hosting performance. I thought it was really terrible. I loved the first one in particular. I hope that he just goes out guns blazing and just lets everybody have it. I really want to see some cutting edge humor, and I don't care if he's mean. He can be as mean as he likes. I just really want to see it. What about you, Riley? Are you excited?
Yeah, I like Ricky Gervais. I think I preferred his last hosting to the one before. I always find it strange, though, that people are fans of Ricky Gervais in general, though, because I feel like not a lot of people watched the original The Office, and they just know him from the Golden Globes.
Okay, maybe. I don't know.
Or Derek.
Exactly. I don't know. It's a strange body of work that I think most people are considering.
Stand-up specials. I mean, yeah, he's a pretty big star. Charlie, what about you? Are you looking forward to hearing from Ricky?
Yeah, I just hope that there are certain things that I kind of always touches on when he's doing an American award show, like talking about how everybody thinks Steve Carell was The Office, but I'm the original guy. It's like, okay, we get that.
We get it.
And we know that, and it's so appropriate that he's hosting the Globes, because the Globes is what really put him on the map in America when they awarded him in what was it, 2003, I think, for The Office. And he was just incredibly. It was so weird. He was incredibly charming when he won these awards, and now he has this reputation as a bad boy, but the Globes still love him. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he'll do. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Ricky Gervais fares in this new age of comedians bemoaning political correctness, because there are a few comedians who are as gleefully politically incorrect as Ricky Gervais, and so kind of upfront about bemoaning the amount of it. And I guess the last time he hosted, I can't remember the date off the top of my head. I know some awards expert I am, but it certainly was in a much less politicized time. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares. I expect him to be charming and funny and offensive and all those things that Ricky Gervais is, and he knows how to host one of these things. So that's more than you can say for some other people that have done it.
I'm just wondering what beer he's going to be drinking.
Right? Yeah.
So I'm so looking forward to it. I'm really in the mood, given what's been going on over the last few days, to just sit back on my couch with a glass of wine and just listen to him riff. That's what I really want to hear. I really need it. I need it for my soul, my dark soul. There are 4 categories on the film side that we haven't really talked a lot about before we move over to TV, and I'd really love to do that. We have about 7 minutes. Score, song, animated feature, and foreign language film. Now, some of those are slam dunks, I think, even though I hate saying that. But I think for foreign, you can't imagine Parasite not taking that home. Although that is a bloody good category. Like The Farewell, Les Miserables, Pain and Glory, and Portrait of a Lady on Fire are all excellent films that could have all won in their respective right had Parasite not been a massive masterpiece contender. So I'll just say that, and then I'll just say all the other categories, and I'll let you guys have a crack at this, because I think song is interesting. I understand the Rocketman predictions. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going with Frozen 2, probably because I'm slightly biased. I have 2 young children who are completely and utterly obsessed with that song and Frozen 2, just like they were back for the original. And I hear it in my nightmares, and so I just really have no choice but to not predict it. Score is interesting to me. That's always one of my favorite categories in any award show, because I just love listening to film scores in the car and in my AirPods. And I think the Joker score is so wonderful. It's not as good as The King, but The King is not nominated. And so is 1917. So that one's a really tough one for me. And then, of course, animated feature, I'm going with Frozen 2 as well, and not Toy Story 4 like everybody else. So I'd love to hear now from you guys. Maybe Zach, do you want to take us through those 4 categories and what you are predicting?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess the only scenario by which Parasite could lose this is if Bong Joon-ho is, guaranteed a win in director, and they want to give that to something else. But I feel like it's just going to be like last year with Roma, where he wins both awards kind of handedly. I will say this also, just while we're on the subject of film categories. It would be a very interesting race if Parasite were competing in Best Drama Film, and the Hollywood Foreign Press Association didn't have this bizarre rule that foreign language films can't compete in that category. Yeah. I kind of wonder, I still would be picking Joker, but I think we'd be having a very different conversation about what the number 2 or number 3 is. As far as animated film, I'm just going with Toy Story 4 for the heck of it. I don't know. It could be Frozen 2. It could be any of these. It could be Lion King for all we know. Just imagine that. Wouldn't that be great? Imagine Jon Favreau accepting that award. I am picking the Joker to win score. I think that 1917 is probably more likely to win the Oscar. And let's not forget that they don't always go with the Oscar frontrunner in this category. Like the year Grand Budapest Hotel won for Alexander Desplat. Finally, they went with the late Johanna Johansson for Theory of Everything. Song, I'm just going with Elton John because I could see any of those 5 winning. You've got Beyonce in the category. You've got Taylor Swift in the category. You've got Cynthia Erivo in the category. You've got EGOT winners, Robert Lopez and Kirsten Anderson Lopez in there. So, I mean, it's just throw a dart at the wall. But, much the same way that Taron Egerton has been campaigning his heart out, so has Sir Elton John.
Yeah. Riley.
Yeah, Joker seems like the kind of score that they like and that they would award even if 1917 is going on to win the Oscar. So I wasn't too sure about that one. And then Joker underperformed at the Australian Awards, which I'm putting so much stock into. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll save that award for 1917 then. And that's just fine. And as for song, I never took the 15 minutes to actually listen to the song nominees, so I just went with the one that everybody else is picking.
Okay, that's fair enough. Charlie?
Yeah, I have Toy Story 4 for animated feature. I have How to Train Your Dragon Hidden World in number 2. Remember, they gave the second How to Train Your Dragon the win for animated feature several years ago. And this was a very fitting conclusion to the franchise. So I would not be surprised to see that happen. But I still am going with Toy Story 4 because they have that affinity for Pixar as well. Foreign language film, I can't imagine anything other than Parasite winning, unless the exact circumstances that Zach said happen. The score, I have 1917, but Joker would not surprise me at all. My reaction to Joker was very mixed, but I remember when I was when I was walking out of the theater, like one of the first two things I was thinking of was Joaquin was amazing and the score blew me away. So I would not be surprised at all to see the Joker score win. And in song, what's the name of the Rocket Man song? I can't remember it.
I'm Gonna Love Me Again.
I'm Gonna Love Me Again.
Great song.
Yeah, I have that winning. The thing about the Frozen 2 song is, remember, even when Let It Go was starting to make its ascent into pop culture, right, as the Globes were going on, when the original Frozen came out, they still didn't give it. They gave it to the song from Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom by U2. And I think that's gonna, and I think they're gonna be in the mindset of wanting to reward a star rather than acknowledging songwriters.
Yeah, I hope they make it up to the Lopez's, because they should have one for Let It Go. It is a classic. Again, I have to say that. Sorry, Zach, did you have
your kids are in the other room listening, so that's
they've got a gun that's right there. Let's move over to TV, because obviously TV is better than film. Controversy.
Hey now,
how dare you? But,
that's what they said, and I turned out TV.
Yeah. TV is so good at the moment. You could have nominated 50 shows and still had some to spare. There's so much good content. It's actually quite maddening for those of us who do this kind of thing as a living, where we have to watch all this stuff and then comment on it. So in drama, there's a debate about whether Succession is as strong as a lot of us believe it is. I think Succession is the second coming, but I'm now starting to realize that I could be on the wrong page, because the morning show does sound like a show that they will go for. Hence Riley's very astute article that you should all go and read. Zach, what do you think about the drama categories, the three of them? What are you predicting and why?
I think that drama series could go to one of three shows, and I'm predicting that show is going to be the morning show, even though Succession is my personal pick, and I had been picking it for a very long time, right up until the last minute, as a matter of fact. I think that, morning show, as it went along, got more acclaimed and got better buzz. Those initial reviews were based on like the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, which weren't very good.
Right. But as each episode went on, exactly. And so I think that benefits it. The fact that it got in for Reese Witherspoon as well, you can say it overperformed. Whereas Succession really should have gotten in Jeremy Strong or Sarah Snook or, any number of the great cast members. The Crown wouldn't surprise me, just because I think they've got to give Netflix some kind of series award or film award. I don't know what that is, so I'm just giving it a bunch of acting awards across TV and film. But I think it's between those three, and it wouldn't surprise me if any of them won. As for the drama acting categories, going with Jennifer Aniston for the morning show, because series and an acting one go together. And I'm going to hedge my bets and say that Brian Cox will win actor, so that if Succession does win, I'll at least get one of those categories right.
Charlie?
I'm same with actor and actress, but I am sticking with Succession because, you know what? I'm sticking my heels in, and I'm just not going to let anybody move me.
And those heels are gorgeous.
Well, the weight also firms it into the
ground. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. Riley, have you commented on TV drama actress and actor yet? I don't think you have necessarily. So why don't you just take us through those again?
Yeah, I've got Jennifer Aniston and I've got Brian Cox as the Succession win. I'm not convinced that they love Succession, but they seem to really like it. And I think it's kind of like when Master of None, it got that initial acting nomination for its first season, and then second season it got into series, and they gave it an acting win because they like the show more. And I don't know.
You know how sometimes. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just wondering if you wanted to check in with Tony since his camera is still on.
Oh. Okay.
we have this for Elijah.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
We can talk
He's
to the
lost so
empty
much
chair now.
weight.
We can talk to the empty chair now, just like Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood. That's back in the day when those Republican things were actually made some sense. Sorry, I won't get political. So look, you know what though? I keep thinking, what if Jennifer Aniston doesn't win? Like, just like, what if if I had said, what if Lady Gaga doesn't win last year, people would have laughed their heads off at me. What if she doesn't win? I keep going back to Jodie Comer, and I just think like the Killing Eve is in drama series, so it's possible. And actually, all of those women have this show nominated. It's a really tough category. Olivia Colman kills it in The Crown season 3, and The Morning Show has 2 people nominated, which could hurt Jennifer Aniston. So I don't know. That one really hurts my brain. And then in drama actor, I think Brian Cox has it, but then again, Tobias Menzies, like The Crown's nominated, and they've nominated him for Outlander. And so, yeah, I think these categories are really exciting. I mean, Billy Porter, a lot of people would have predicted him if Pose had done a little better, but it didn't this year, which is ridiculous because season 2 of Pose is like so much better than season 1, in my opinion. So, yeah, these categories hurt my brain.
Yeah, my theory about Billy Porter and Jodie Comer, who I would think would have better chances if they had not just won Emmys, is the fact that like I have so many people predicted to win who won Emmys this past year that I think there's going to be a limit to how many repeat winners they're going to have at this telecast. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if either one of them won. It definitely wouldn't surprise me if Olivia Colman won, because as we've learned from last year's Oscar season, if there's anybody who's going to pull off a surprising upset, it is Queen Olivia Colman. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you for referring to her by her proper title.
Who doesn't want to see another drunken acceptance speech from her?
Oh,
you know? Tim, I'm so sorry. This is not the way I wanted to meet you.
Yeah, just love her. She's so funny. You know, also before you guys joined us, we've kvetched a lot about the limited series categories because they are slightly confounding for me, in particular because Chernobyl is the cool, safe, best of the decade, all that stuff. I've said it 100 times already. Choice, but Unbelievable has full nominations.
Devastation is very cool.
Yeah. So, and the loudest voice as well is topical, prescient, given what's going on at the moment or has been going on since 2016. So, and I'm so happy to see Catch-22 as well, because that was snubbed by the Emmys, and that I thought that was really, really well done series on Hulu, as well as Christopher Abbott. So look, I'm going with Chernobyl, I'm going with Russell Crowe, I'm going with Michelle Williams as a safe bet, but I think Merritt Weaver has a shot. What about you guys? Charlie, what are you predicting in those 3 categories?
I had Chernobyl for the longest time, and then today I switched to Unbelievable. So I just feel like it feels like they might try to spread the wealth, although they don't always like to do that. But I think that might be one of the places where we might see that happen. Actor, I have Jared Harris, but I do not rule out Russell Crowe. He is a movie star, and they love their movie stars in his, which is actually why I'm predicting Kirsten Dunst in the comedy actress category. Yeah, and actress, I'm also going with Michelle Williams.
Okay, Zach?
I'm going with Chernobyl just because it has like the international appeal to it, you know, and also, I mean, it's just such a well-made, you know, hugely entertaining technical achievement. I have Jared Harris winning as well because of that. Mostly because like his main Emmy competition is not in this race. So I think this will be a way of like him getting his due for that performance. And I have Michelle Williams just because like, you know, Sarah Paulson in O.J. Simpson before her. I think that it's the kind of role that's just going to go on a winning streak, and we'll be talking about her again for SAG very shortly. Unbelievable is the one that I think is the spoiler in limited series. Again, I think, you know, Netflix has got to win something probably, but my hesitation is I don't know what acting winner to go along with it. I mean, Riley, I think you're going with Toni Collette. That would seem like a good choice, but as we know, the supporting categories are always up in the air. And I think Caitlin Dever and Merritt Wever probably cancel each other out. Plus, Michelle Williams is just so undeniable.
Yeah. So then by the way, The Loudest Voice, I think we can't necessarily dismiss too much, because I think Showtime might have to win something too. Like, they do like to give something to everybody. Even Stars sometimes wins, and you know how we feel, how awards voters, especially Emmy voters, feel about Stars. Anyway, that's a digression. I don't agree. I think Russell Crowe is going to win. We're going to see at least one Australian win, otherwise I'm going to riot. Okay, so looking at the comedy categories, because by the way, there are a lot of Australians nominated, which is really cool as usual. And there are a few Australians who are HFPA voters as well, including Jenny Carrillo, who is, I think, like the vice president or something. In the comedy categories, Fleabag seems to be the one that everyone's saying, yeah, that's the big critical darling, and it won all the Emmys, and it's the best of the decade, and rah 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 rah. And I'm pretty cool with that as well. Although I do think that they do love The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but that third season was a revelation to me, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that win. But The Politician is something that we've talked about a bit, because I can't believe that's nominated. I watched some of it and thought it was okay, but I just didn't think it was anything that fantastic. Again, my opinion. Zach, what about you? What do you think about the comedy categories?
As Marcus and I were talking about earlier, I think that The Politician got nominated for comedy series as an excuse for them to justify giving comedy actor to Ben Platt, which is what I'm predicting will happen. As far as series goes, I think that this is where we're going to see some Emmy overlap. I think that Fleabag's going to win. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is going to win. And I think Andrew Scott is going to get revenge for being Emmy nominated less, if that's the correct way to say it. So I think that's going to walk away with the most wins on the TV side tonight, just because it's like, it was such a phenomenon, and this is the last chance. This is the only chance they're ever going to have to be able to reward it. And as far as Maisel goes, I mean, it's won 2 years in a row, which is rare enough. They like to go with different things after a while.
Charlie?
Yeah, I have Fleabag winning series, and I have Bill Hader winning comedy actor. But Ben Platt, it does feel like a very logical choice for the Globes, because he's this star on the rise. He's already a Tony and a Grammy winner for Dear Evan Hansen, and this would like really cement that even further, that he's this big up and comer. As you can see, the police are after me right now. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Apparently, you shouldn't steal bathroom keys from the Pentagon. So
yeah, definitely not.
But as I said, I am going with Kirsten Dunst in comedy actress. That's my no guts no glory.
Yourself. That's insane.
As I said, she's a movie star. She's a movie star amongst this category. And even if they give Fleabag, even if they don't give it to Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she will win as the creator of Fleabag. So I still acknowledge that I think she is a very strong possibility to win. But I just have this feeling like they might, and come on, the Globes, they nominated Kirsten Dunst for the first time when she was 14 for Interview with the Vampire.
Such a great nomination.
Yeah, and she's really been, as we just thought that she was like, she was just like this, pretty actress, but she's been choosing immensely interesting roles over not just the past couple of years, past 10 years, go back to Melancholia in 2011, but also doing Fargo, doing this, on Becoming a God in Central Florida. I think that she might be able to pull that off, very much like Billy Bob Thornton was able to win for Goliath, even though I don't believe that had a TV series nomination.
It didn't. Good point. And that could be somewhere where Showtime wins that one token Globe. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's actually not too stupid.
And your apology.
Yeah, and that's one of the nicest things that anyone's ever said to you, I'm hearing.
Yeah.
It is. Riley, have you got any final thoughts on the comedy categories before we start to finish up?
I do not.
Good to know. All right. So, look, the final thoughts on the TV side, Zach, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you are looking forward to seeing or you think might happen?
I mean, obviously, if Succession were to win, that would be a victory for me personally, just because of how much I love the show. I would be sad about getting the prediction wrong, obviously, but you got to weigh your pros and cons there. I mean, I'm just sort of I don't know. I'm excited to see how many new shows they go after, because the Globes do have a tendency to want to anoint shiny new things, even if they don't translate to Emmys. But then they also sometimes like to just sort of go with the flow and reward something that is undeniable. It's always a gamble with the Globes. And, I'm just I'm anxious to see what they go for.
Okay. Charlie, any final thoughts from you?
On the TV side, if Brian Cox wins, that would be enough for me. That if Brian Cox wins, because I've been a fan of his for so long, ever since I saw him in LIE. If you haven't, to any of our viewers, if you haven't seen that movie, you got to see that movie with the very young Paul Dano. Also, he's amazing in it. So I would love to see him win tonight. Really, there's nothing else I can think of except I just make this plea to the HFPA. If any of their members are watching, please go back to one of the old Golden Globe designs, because this thing just doesn't look right. It looks like an oversized plastic paperweight. And no, just go back to the old design. Retro is good in this case.
Okay. Riley, any final thoughts from you?
I love that the Golden Globes are serving a vegan dinner this year.
Are they?
Boo.
Scary. Look, as long as there's alcohol, I don't.
That's why they're serving a vegan dinner. They don't want it to soak up all of the. They don't want to soak up all the alcohol.
That's right. Actually, that reminds me. I want to see some crazy ass speeches. I want to see people kind of just misbehaving. I want to see someone like Christine Lahti in the toilet. I want to see that stuff.
Jacqueline Bisset. Nothing will beat that.
Just nominate her again so we can get her up on that stage. That's why I love the Globes. I enjoy the Globes because it's just about the awards. There's not a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of film packages and not a lot of interpretive dance. It's just awards, awards, awards. But when you're up there, guys, please don't just read off a list of names. Actually entertain us. That's what you're being paid for. Just dance for us, okay? Dance, and then we'll be happy. And then Ricky Gervais, just go for gold, mate. It's all good. We will forgive you tomorrow. We're seeing all kinds of really awful stuff on Twitter. So whatever you're going to say, it can't really be that bad. So just go for gold. That's what I think. Look, I think we should probably finish up. We have 4 minutes until the start of the show. Why don't we all go and have a bathroom break? And I need to pour my Prosecco, and we need to get ready to go for this. So everyone come back. As soon as the show's over, we'll be back with a whole bunch of stars from Gold Derby's stable, and we'll talk more about all the surprises and all the really cool stuff. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's been lots of fun.
Thank you all.